What's up, everybody? Stoked to be here again. Episode 2. Let's go. I'm really excited about this one. I got my boy Jacob in the house, Jacob Halaby. I'm going to introduce him in a second. But guys, again, just like I said the first round, this is for you, right? The whole reason that we're coming together today is for you. So this is about you taking something away from this, applying it to your life, right? There's so many people, millions, billions, and billions of people in the world that will never hear their experiences, right? So I want to just really remind you to take the opportunity to soak in what people are sharing on this episode in particular, but on this podcast in general, because these people are coming here for you, opening their hearts up and giving you just a peek inside of their life of what they've experienced in hopes that it can offer value to you. So when you turn around away from this podcast and step back into your life, you can apply it, right? And you can hopefully experience maybe a little less pain than we had to, or just have a blessing that wouldn't have been there if you didn't have the tools or the perspective that this hopefully offers you. So with no further ado, I just want to take a moment to introduce my brother, Jacob here. Jacob is an entrepreneur. He owns a badass barbershop here in Chandler, Arizona. Super grateful for him and his services. He's a dad, a husband, amazing man. I've learned a lot from this guy. We've had some really amazing conversations, just heart to hearts, and I'm excited to share the space with him today, just doing the same thing. But Jacob is really inspired by others, and then he chooses to give back to others in the same way and inspire them. And that's one of the things I love about you, is that you've humbled yourself so immensely to learn and then take on things from people, but then also just give it away so freely, which is what this whole entire podcast is all about. So I just want to open up the podcast here for you, man, and just give you an opportunity to just tell me a little bit more about like who you are, kind of where you come from, and like what your day-to-day looks like what your life looks like, what you're up to, what you're creating, all that good stuff. So take it away, man.
Oh, dude. First of all, thanks for the edification. That was really nice of you. And like you said, we have had some beautiful conversations that may that should have maybe been recorded in the first place. But here
Right.
we are in the thankfully we have this opportunity together. And you know what, dude, I've learned a lot from you too, bro. So this is a beautiful thing that you put together. I'm honored to be here on episode 2 and being a part of what you have going on. You've been a big part of my life for almost 4 years now, I think, right?
Yeah, that sounds about
And
right.
every bit of me having the pleasure of you being in my life has been beneficial in a lot of ways. So I just want to give that back to you
Thanks,
and
man.
say thanks for opening up my mind and helping me see the vulnerable parts of myself, because I wasn't always that way, you know? Um, yeah, you and I both know that, but for the viewers, I've been through a lot. Good, a lot of good. I mean, I have nothing but gratitude towards my life, but there have been road bumps along the way that I didn't have the heart to understand in myself. So James has allowed me to see that my emotions and the sensitivity inside my heart is okay. And he really helped me push past that societal norm to be a man, you know?
Oh yeah, man. That's what it's all about. I think I mean, that's one of the things too that I like talk about a lot, and it's the hardest thing to do because it's easy to be vulnerable in some places, right? Right, like behind closed doors, especially like if you're like with like when we're having conversations, right? But it's like taking those things into to like the important places in our life, like for you being a dad and being a husband, for me being a husband, right? Being an entrepreneur, owning a business, like going into your workplace and
Yeah.
like and standing ground to be like the leader that they need, but then also harnessing the level of vulnerability that's necessary to like let people feel, like it's okay to be themselves and to express themselves in your workspace. Because I mean,
Yeah.
how many guys you got in your shop?
We have 10 barbers, dude. And just to give you guys a little bit of a background, I opened up a barbershop 5 years ago. Um, I've always had the mindset of being an entrepreneur. I've just had the pleasure now of actually getting to do it. But, even though I've only owned a business for 5 years, it's been a goal for 10 years. And within those first 5 years, I just had to do the groundwork. I had to start the process to becoming a barbershop owner, which starts with, first of all, the idea, second of all, the mindset of an entrepreneur, and third, obviously, going to school and becoming a barber first, right? And that was always the goal. As soon as I had the thought of becoming an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't want a normal job. Um, And so, yeah, I did that. I've accomplished a lot in those days, and to this day I have. But ultimately, what has led me there is all mindset and believing that I can do it. It wasn't easy, right? I experienced a lot, and what going upon what you were saying is like, I have 10 guys in my shop, and like Drake said, I know it's cliche, but like a boss is a role that you've grown in. No, I'm serious. A boss is a role that you grow into, and like that has always resonated with me. Every time I heard that in his song, I don't even know what song it is, but every time he says that, I'm like, man, like that couldn't be more true, because I was just this vulnerable little dude with a dream, and I made it work, and I didn't know how to be a boss. The first guy I hired was double my age. You know what I mean? So like
Well, yeah, for the
that was
listeners, like, I
weird.
mean, how old are you right now?
I'm 29, about to be 30 in September. It is
Yeah,
currently July 30th, almost, I think.
June
I don't even know
20th.
what day it is,
Or
but
almost.
oh yeah, June, yeah.
But yeah, but I mean, so like keep in mind, like, right, like, so you started your shop when you were 24.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, and then and you
20,
had that dream for 5
25,
years
yeah.
before that, right? So I mean,
Yep.
I'll speak for myself. I don't know about listeners out there. When I was 19 years old, and I know times might be different for some people, the where my life was at, the trajectory I was on, I was not thinking about like how can I start my own business, right, and have employees and
Right.
like and all that stuff. So what what is it that elicited that like first thought, like that vision or that purpose for you to open up a shop and be an entrepreneur? Because most folks are like, they get out of high school, they're in high school, they're like, I'm going to get a normal job and just make some money and like whatever, and like, fuck around and
Yeah.
find out kind of the mindset at that age.
Well, I mean, if you want me to go way back, I will. So I grew up in a place called Maricopa. I lived there for 11 years. To this day, I hate it. I have nothing against the city itself because it's grown a lot since I lived there. But when I lived there, it was very much so a small town. And I went to school 30 minutes away. So, like, the gap between the drive home and to school every single day, I was in the car for like hour and 10, depending on if there was traffic, right? And it's a one way in, one way out road. It was horrible. But with that, I've had a lot of time to spend with my parents in the car. And my dad and I'm being the only child, I'm the firstborn child as well, um, had a lot. Like, that's when we talked, we would be in the
Mhm.
car and we talk. And, my dad is a beautiful soul. I love him to death. And he did everything that he needed to do to give us a valuable life. And my family was not rich by any means. We grew up with food on our table and a roof overhead, and I'm grateful for that. And that is what we had. But there was not much more than that. Um, so when we went on family vacations, like it was me and my sister going with my aunt and uncle because we couldn't afford to bring the whole family, right? Like which is fine. Like I don't say that in a negative way. I say it in a grateful way, but ultimately, just to give you guys perspective of like how my life was growing up. So my dad and I would talk a lot, and a lot of the times he would talk to me about his job, and like it wouldn't be fulfilling for him, like, oh man, this is stressing me out. Oh man, I don't want to take this promotion because the more money I make, the more opportunity they have to let me go. And I have a family that I have to take care of. And that was always hard for me to hear because I'm a very ambitious person. I always have been, but I didn't understand the concept of like not wanting to grow, but I also didn't have a family then. So I understand now a little bit of his hesitation to have a risk over reward, right? He's
Mhm.
giving up himself so that his family can have everything that they have, right? But it did trigger me. Like it triggered me like to be like, Dad, you should go for the promotion. You have every right to be the person in the position that you can apply for. And I just don't understand why you're not going for it. Risk it. Who cares? You can always get another job. But my dad, his risk tolerance is not super high because of his family. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. But back then, I obviously he had 3 kids and a wife and a house. I get it.
Yeah.
But
When I think generationally too, I mean things were different for him, than they are
yeah,
now. I mean, there's not a
without a doubt.
yeah, there's a big difference between the way people are thinking now than people were thinking 40 years ago when they were a kid. You know what I mean?
It wasn't as tangible as it is now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what happened was that when I graduated high school, my dad asked me, he's like, "Hey, why don't you come work for my company, and they'll pay for your college as you work for them?" And I was like, "Dad, respectfully, hell no." And he took offense to that. Like he took offense to that. Like he was confused. Like, what's wrong with my job, right? And I was like, nothing, nothing at all. But like, Dad, for 10 years of my life, you've been complaining to me about how you don't love your job. You work in a cubicle. You want to maybe do and branch out somewhere else. And like, you just haven't been fulfilled. I've seen it, like whether you realize it or not, I have seen it, and I don't want that. No offense. I just don't want that. And so
Mm.
I knew that wasn't going to be my route. I didn't know it was going to be a business owner, but I knew I wasn't going to do something normal.
Yeah.
Around that same time, my dad had worked with somebody who was younger. Like I think she was like maybe 4 years older than I am. She was a intern at his company, and she said, "Hey Andy, like I have an opportunity for your son." And it was network marketing, and I had no concept of what that was. I just saw this drink that everybody's drinking and like hype, and like I went and I figured it out. I was like, this is dope. Like let's do it. I was very money motivated then. I still am with different concept behind it, but ultimately, self development came through network marketing in a big way for me. I mean, being 18 years old, I was like, like obviously, I'm very vulnerable, and like whatever you surround yourself in that age is kind of who you become as a person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like a
And I
sponge.
was consumed, yeah, for sure. I was consumed by this self development and the power of your mind and believing and like law of attraction, the universe, and this all was just surrounding me, and like success and all these people. And like, I was like, man, this is dope. And I did it. I did it. I got the whole car and I did all that fun stuff, and it was really cool. But that very quickly kind of just fell out from underneath me, and I didn't know what to do after that, right? Like I was like, man, I just spent all this time building this thing,
How
and
long
now
were you?
what? Like
How long were
no,
you in that space for?
at that time, about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were some of like the
Um,
hurdles? Did you experience like growing pains or like hurdles in that space? Like, because I know you,
oh
like, I
yeah.
mean, the listeners don't know you the way that I know you. Like, I know like you're open minded to everything now, and that's how I've known you for the last few years. You're pretty down for like any concept to be in a conversation with. I've never heard you like just shut something down because somebody brings it up. That's just not who you are. But like when you were 19, I hear you were like excited about this. But was it something that you felt resistance to? Did you have like some like
The
some like
biggest resistance I experienced was just myself. I mean,
okay
I was my own worst enemy back then. Just getting out of my own way was tough, especially being so uh, conscious of how everybody else perceived me back then.
Did you feel
Um,
like you had to look a
but I,
certain way or be a certain way to be like accepted in that kind of crowd, especially at
yeah,
that
I
age?
mean, yes and no. I think that what my worth came with was the level that I was at in the business, right? Like my
Hmm.
my worth, like I wasn't anybody until I was somebody with
Yeah,
the attachment of the level that I was in the company. Does that make
like
sense?
whatever rank you
Like
were,
how
or whatever.
hard,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, exactly. And
gotcha.
so um yeah, I pushed myself outside my comfort zone. I mean, I didn't get where I was at just by watching. Like there was a lot of mimicking, a lot of the way that I spoke back then on stage in front of people at house events and all that stuff like would be mimicking the same thing that was working before. So I
Mm,
didn't really turn it into what I was. It wasn't me yet, but I didn't even know who I was back then yet.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I experienced a lot of adversity, if you will, back then, and nothing compared to what I've been through now. But back then, it's kind of fun to look at those times because they were a lot more simple, but it did shape who I am today. So getting back to the story, after that fell apart, I I did not want to go to a normal 9 to 5 job. But my grandfather was willing to pay for my college then, and that was kind of like the only route that I had. So I felt privileged in a way, and that I didn't feel grateful for, and I felt kind of like an asshole for not wanting to take the opportunity. But because I had nothing else going for me at that time, I was like, might as well go to college, and like even though this is not something I want to do, I'm going to do it anyway. So
yeah.
I went to some
It's
college
hard after
first.
being in the network marketing profession and then going into being a normal job.
Yeah, I mean, all they would preach was don't you go to school, you get good grades, you grow good college, you graduate, you get a 9 to 5 job, you work for 30 years, you grad or you what's it called? You retire when
Retire.
you're 67 and then you die. And I'm like, yeah, fuck that. Excuse my language. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, absolutely,
Oh,
please.
it's called unfucked. Yeah, okay. I'm like, fuck that, dude. Like I don't want to do that, you know? And so, yeah, I went to college for a semester and a half, and my grandfather is a suit and tie businessman and the president and CEO of Arizona Water Company. And he's like, I'm over here taking art classes and learning how to draw. And he's like, bro, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't even know, man. Like, I'd rather do something I'm interested in than sitting here in this math class that I don't give a shit about, you know? Um, and so I knew that I had to do something. And there was a time in that I was sitting in school in between classes, and I was looking at everybody walking around with so much purpose and drive behind what they're doing. And I was like, dude, I don't have that here. I'm lost without a plan, and that's not a good place to be. But I need to do something because I'm dying slowly being here, you know?
Yeah.
And so
That's a
I just
powerful
started diving
realization
within
to have,
myself.
though, to see that. And
It
like,
is.
especially at a younger age, to see that and be like, yo, I need to do something about this. Because I think a lot of
Yeah, man.
people, like, when grandpa's funding it, or like, dad and grandpa do a certain thing, they just conform. Even though they feel that, they just conform. And then then 15, 20 years later, they're like, where the fuck did I take the wrong turn at? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how do I get to where I really wanted to be? And now you've got years and years and years of shit in between you and that experience, you know?
And the one thing I'll tell you is that conforming has never been my strong suit, if you
Yeah,
will, because it's not, it's, if somebody tells me to go left, I'm going to go right to figure out why they don't want me to go left. And that's not an egotistical thing. It's I need to figure it out for myself, you know?
totally.
It's and that's, generally how I became an entrepreneur. So I had to dive within myself to figure out, dude, I need to do something quickly because I just can't be here any longer. So what is it that I like to do? I'm an artist. I like to draw. I like to be creative. I like to work with my hands. Like, what can I do? And like, my mom is a hairstylist, and growing up in my house, my dad built my mom a hair salon in our house. And so when my friends would come over in high school, I would cut their hair. Never did I think it was going to become a career ever, but I do remember the specific moment of being finished with a haircut, feeling fulfilled on the fact that I did that. Like, I was like, man, I did that. Like, I did a good job. That feels good, right?
Yeah.
And that is the 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 feeling I was chasing, right? Like, fulfillment. And so I was like, I was good at that. So like, what if I went to barber school and I opened up a barber shop? Like, all I need is some chairs, a mirror, some lights, and some clippers, and I can say I have a business, right? So I went to my grandfather and I was like, hey, Gramps, I love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Like, I still want to go to school. I just don't want to go to traditional school. So what if you transferred your dollars from traditional school to barber school? And he's like, uh, barbers on average make $30,000 a year, right? And I was like, yes, but Gramps, I'm not average. That's literally what I told him. And I believed in myself enough to say, I know I can make more than 30 grand, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so he goes, you need skin in the game. Like, you just quit college and wasted a bunch of my money. And I was like, fair enough. He goes, I'll pay for half if you pay for half. I was like, done. So the universe back then worked in all these beautiful ways. I met a guy at a place called Lucky Lou's, which is just a bar that I was at with my wife, that she ended up knowing him, and he worked in suits. And he's like, dude, your personality is perfect for what I do. I can give you a job for $12 an hour plus 5% of anything that you sell. And I was like, dope, let's do it. Yeah, that sounds great. I need a job right now. And yeah, suits and haircuts kind of go together. So like, let's do it. So for a year of my life, I went to school for 6 days a week and I worked 4 days a week. And the only day that I had half of for myself was Sunday at 6 o'clock to like midnight, right? But I grinded it out, and I did what I had to do to get that, And then when I graduated college, barber college, I got a job at the only barbershop that kind of mimicked the type of barbershop that I would want to own for myself, and worked there for 2.5 years, and here I am. I've owned a barbershop for 5 years now, so
That's
that's kind
dope,
of where it
dude.
all started, dude. Yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you kind of the beginning stages of how I got molded into an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So what were some of like the biggest like challenges you had opening your shop? So for I don't think we plugged your shop yet. So I mean, we'll definitely plug you at the end. But the name of Jacob Shops is Lifeline Barbershop in Chandler, Arizona. So if you're ever in town, hit him up specifically. But if not him, he's got a ton of amazing barbers in the shop that will be more than happy to take care of you.
Thanks, dude.
But yeah, of course, dude. Um, what were some of like the biggest challenges? Because I mean, I've even experienced just like, secondhand, like some of the things that you've gone through, and you've been pretty established with that location since I met you. So there's even been
Yeah.
some big shifts and changes and stuff. Like what do you think the biggest challenges of like getting that off the ground? Because anybody here who owns a business, if you've never opened a brick and mortar business, that is a whole another deal than having like an online business. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's its own beast for sure.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. Some of the biggest challenges, I mean, I think that for anybody who wants to develop spiritually, physically, and mentally, has always the biggest challenge has always been getting in your own way, right? And I'm just going to revert back to exactly basically what I said before with my beginning stages of network marketing. It was kind of like an imposter syndrome, right? Where
Mm.
like, am I capable of actually doing this? Now, the belief of me owning the barbershop was never a problem. I knew what I was going to do. I achieved it. I did that. But the problem was like the conflict of a barber not holding themselves to I guess the standard I hold myself to, right?
Yeah.
And what I had to learn was that conflict was not my strong suit. So instead of like sharing with them how I felt or the standard that I needed the shop to be at, I would just hold it in, right? And that has affected me negatively in a lot of ways at the beginning of the shop because, I mean, dude, how do you own a business and not share with somebody like their expectation, right? And I guess sharing expectation was exactly what I was lacking is,
Mm.
hey, these are the expectations of what it takes to work here. And if you're not meeting the requirements, then we're going to have to let you go, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that simple, but just for the basics of it all, that's kind of where I had struggle, right?
And so what
So
was the biggest struggle behind that? Was it like I don't know how to voice that to somebody, or like I don't want them to think I'm a dick, or like what like you want what
yeah,
was like the
yeah.
biggest thing there for you?
I mean, dude, you got to work with these people every single day, bro. Like I see some of my barbers more than I see my family, and I
Yeah.
love everybody I work with now, because I've learned how to voice my opinion and expectation, and if there's something I can just have a conversation about, it's that simple, right? But back then it wasn't that simple. I was worried about how they would feel. I mean, I've always been somebody who's a bit empathetic,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to make someone feel less than, you know. And my big mantra, if you will, in my business was that I've been on the ground floor with everyone. I'm cutting hair just as much as everyone else. I'm grinding with you guys like this.
Yeah, you're
This
in
is
the
not
pit
just
with
my
them.
shop, it's your shop. Yeah, too.
Yeah.
And like I'm doing this for you guys, and I'm no better than you. Zero. I don't feel like I want to be better than you. So how am I the one that's going to say how much you get paid? How am I the one that says that you're doing something wrong right now? How am I the one that says you have to wear this to work here? Right? Because
Mm.
I'm no better than you. I'm on the same level and playing field as you. Even though I was the boss, quote unquote, I didn't know how to be the boss because I didn't feel like the boss. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Especially when I'm 24, 25 years old trying to tell a 40-year-old man how to dress coming into my shop, right? Like it was just a new territory. It was a new feeling, and it was something that I would not let my ego get in the way of. I did not want myself to get into this realm of like, I own this place and you got to do what I say and I'm a dictator. And I still feel
Yeah.
that way. I've grown a lot since then, and I'm willing to get into that and what I've learned and how I've really dissected what I'm feeling and how what I was going through and how I've been able to communicate through, that adversity. If that's something that you're interested in.
Totally. I mean, well, I think the imposter syndrome thing is like one of the things I want to talk about that, like, and we can come back to your journey and like leadership specifically, because I feel like that's where this conversation's gone. But dude, imposter syndrome, I mean, I'll speak for myself, and if anybody out there can relate, you know, I think that's like a really big thing, and that's a really easy thing to hold you back from getting your life, your business, your relationships to the next level, right? Because it's like that's that whole mindset of like, who the fuck do I think I am to do
Right.
XYZ or be XYZ or make XYZ? And a lot of that is conditionality from, you know, for like from childhood. It's not so much that somebody imposed it on you, but you consumed it through a conversation at some point. You took it, right? Like you saw I'll speak for myself and my family. It's like my grandpa was an entrepreneur. I have no reason. Man, he was very successful. I have no reason, and it's funny that bringing him up today. Today's his birthday, his heavenly birthday. So, like, right. So like he was very successful. So I have no reason to not believe that I can do it. But there's something in
Right.
my mind that at one point I had an experience or something happened where I got shot down, or I wasn't successful, or I failed in sports, or my dad got upset and said something to me, or somebody didn't show up for me the way I expected them to. And I like made this idea up like in my brain that like, I can't produce that. You know what I mean? I'm not meant to produce something like that. And if you live with those stories for a long time, it can get really, really invasive into your everyday, right? It can really
Yeah.
protrude into your everyday thinking. So I think imposter syndrome is a big thing to look at, because it's like, who am I to think that I could tell this 40-year-old man how to do a better job at what he's doing, how to show up and be a respectful employee in my shop, all sorts of different stuff. So
Right.
I hope somebody can relate to that, because I mean, imposter syndrome is a big one for me, and I've coached and supported a lot of people, and imposter syndrome tends to be a really common thread for a lot of folks, especially stepping into their leadership, which is exactly what you were doing at that point in time.
Exactly. And leadership is, I mean, man, it's just such a broad term, but that has been as much as adversity as I've experienced was, I mean, if you want to just boil it down to one word, it would be leadership, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I know myself enough to say that I'm a natural born leader. And it's weird to be that, because in moments like opening up the shop and telling what they got the 40-year-old man to wear, right? Like, it's like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, but like the world is telling me that I am. Like I
Yeah.
know I'm supposed to be here and everything's pointing to this direction, but like, are you guys, like, I say you guys, like I talked to the universe back then, especially, I was like, are you sure this is for me? Like, am I the guy, but I'm here and I'm doing it, like, and in a weird way, like my whole life has kind of been like laid out. Like, I've looked for what the world wanted me to do, right? Like, I was able to be like, listen and say with my heart, with my mind, and say, this is the direction that you're supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a door that's open. You need to go there. Okay, I'm going to do it. And it's led me to this beautiful success, right? And I'm so thankful for that. But the leadership is the hardest part
Yeah.
of the imposter syndrome for me. And something I want to touch on that I was going to bring up later on in the podcast, but because we're here, the perception of imposter syndrome is the only thing that needs to change, because that rejection that you experience when you're a kid, or what you were talking about is when I was a kid, or that experience that I had with my parents, or that one time that my grandfather told me this and it really stuck with me. Identifying those things is super crucial and important. And you have to ask yourself, like, what voice comes up in my head when I think of those moments, or when I go through and feel that trauma, if you will, right? And think, what voice is talking to me when I think about those times?
Mm.
Is it, I'm a dumbass? Is it, oh, my grandpa was right, maybe I shouldn't own a business? Or, oh, barbers do only make $30,000 a year. What am I thinking? Can I even do this? Right? Like those hardship moments, like, what voice shows up in your head? Because no matter what, and the thing that I've really come to terms with, and this is just recently, right? After the 5 years owning the business and everything that I've been through, which some of it we haven't even gone into, but one thing I really need everyone listening here, and if I can give any token or nugget to you listening, is that no matter how confident you are externally, no matter how much you portray yourself as someone who owns a barbershop or owns an online business or is successful in life spiritually, mentally, physically, or you are able to walk in your own skin, or you're able to say no when everybody else says yes, no matter how much that external confidence is being portrayed, you have to listen to the internal voice in hard times, even in good times, on what are you saying to yourself? Because
Mm.
no matter how confident you are, your self-worth will always be the thing and the factor in how far you go, or how lack or not, what's the word I'm trying to say? How far you go or not how far you go,
Yeah.
for lack
That's
of
it's
better
like your
terms. Sorry.
governor. Yeah, your self-worth is like your governor in your life.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
And so when I heard that, everything made sense to me. I've been going through a season in my life where I'm changing I'm about to be 30, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the season. The season is I've been doing the same thing for a long time. I've listened to the universe and God for me, right? I'm not telling anybody else here what to believe in. I'm just speaking from my own terms. What I've done, okay, I did this, right? But like, what's next for me? Like, that's the season that I'm like, what's the next 10 years going to look like for me? And I'm so proud of myself for what I did. I couldn't have done it on my own, but we're here. What is
Yeah.
the next part of my life really going to look like right now? And when I heard your internal voice and self-worth, I realized that I've been holding myself back for a long time. I've always wanted to be able to motivate and inspire. And I do that. I'm really, really good at doing that when it's one-on-one coaching, if you will, when someone's in
Hmm.
my chair. The reason I've become so successful as a barber is because I don't just cut your hair. Like, I become a part of your life. When you go through something, you share it with me, I remember, right? And I'm able to articulate everyone's negative thought in their mind into light. And when I say that, I'm saying that, hey, you're going through something, but guess what? There's light at the end of the tunnel, even though you can't see it right now, right?
Oh yeah.
I promise if you just stick with what it is you're going through and you follow through with your plan, that light will reveal itself when it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And it's I love it. I love doing that. And I've realized I want to do that on a bigger scale through digital podcasting or physical podcasting or speaking on stage. And I, just had the privilege of doing that last week. But this is the last thing I'll say, and we'll get back to this story is whether you believe in God, the universe, spiritual or not, the point of what I'm trying to say is what I want you to grasp. And you too, James, because what you've just shared with us about your childhood and not being able to articulate that trauma into something that you can do or holding
Hmm.
you back, or that imposter syndrome. Rejection is God's protection. I'm going to say it again. Rejection is God's protection. What does that mean? The only way I can articulate this is from my perspective, and you guys listening can maybe take it on your own perspective. Obviously, I don't know that, but for me, I've been rejecting myself for a long time by imposter syndrome, right? That means that I'm not good enough to go speak on stage. I'm not good enough to own a barbershop with 13 chairs and 10 barbers. I'm not good enough to open up another barbershop. I'm scared that I'll fail. I've made bad investments in the past, so maybe I can't handle being rich because I can't trust myself with my money, right? That rejection of myself is the imposter syndrome speaking in full force, right? Now, I just recently learned rejection is God's protection. So what does that mean? I wasn't ready for any of the things that I wanted. I was not ready to go speak on stage. I was not ready to have money in my bank account that is abundant. I was not ready to be the best version of myself yet because I had a lot of growing to do. And because I was not ready, I know that maybe God had a different plan for me in a way that I couldn't have impacted the people that I want to impact on a positive note yet. But now I can. Now I'm the strongest version of myself that I've ever been. Now that imposter syndrome and that voice in my head is telling me that I am worth it. Now I do trust myself in every step of the way. I understand my emotions. I know how to open up my heart. I know how to talk to people. I know how to be the best version of for my wife as a husband. I know how to be the best version for my son and instill that confidence in him, right? And those things are super crucial for me and so important because, and now it means even more because rejection was God's protection and God was protecting me from myself. I was not ready for anything that I wanted yet. And I
Mm.
don't mean to bring this into religion. It's not necessarily religious for me. It's a very spiritual thing for me, just for everybody, that's listening. I'm not trying to, vomit things on you, right? If you resonated with it, great. But if you don't, just take what I'm saying and apply it in your own words, if you don't mind. Because I love you no matter what. But ultimately, my point is like everybody deserves to feel that. Everybody deserves to feel like that rejection in their life and that imposter syndrome that they're experiencing is something that is necessary for your growth, but you have to be able to see that there is always going to be a positive to every negative in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, think about something that you've been through, James. I mean, there's been a lot of negative that you and I have had conversations behind closed doors with that ultimately have led you to this moment right now, dude. You wanted to do this for a long time. You talked to me about this podcast and like you wanted to do it for 2 years, but you've been held back, right? Whether it was you
Yeah.
or the next thing. But look
Yeah.
at you right now, dude. You're the version of yourself that is able to handle this, and this is going to be the best thing that you did because you're the version of you right now. You weren't ready for that before, and I
Yeah.
truly
And
believe that.
well, and I think the most powerful thing for me to remember is that like when I click that record button and I come in and introduce myself and my guest, and the 30 minutes leading up to this, I still have that voice in my head that's saying like, uh, is this going to be good? Are people going to listen? Is anything going to matter that you
Right,
do? Is this even,
right.
and I hear it, the funny part is I hear it try to squeak in even while I'm taking the action, right? Like we're sitting here, we're making it happen. And I'll hear it and I'm just like, dude, like we're doing it. Like we're here. It's happening. And then what I've learned is as long as I stand in authenticity and I just stand in my power, it doesn't matter. None of those things matter. But you're absolutely right. Like, you know, there's a few things that you touched on that I want to just highlight because the first thing is you talked about like who you are to your clients when they're in your chair. And the one thing that I love about that is you're taking pain and I mean, dude, I know me, I've poured my heart out sitting in my barber's chair well before you too, right? So there's something really magical about the intimacy of that, right? And I've heard a lot of barbers talk about it, a lot of guys talk about, their experience. It's not just girls going to the salon. You guys got it too. But
Yeah,
there really is something really beautiful about that experience and that relationship. And you're turning pain into purpose by shining light on these guys' experiences. And there's something very meditative and refreshing and relaxing about getting a cut that kind of lets you open up. And the
yeah,
thing
man.
that's really cool is when I hear you say that, going back to, you know, talking to grandpa about being a barber, you know, it's like, I heard that was something, I heard that there was pain in that when grandpa said, like what he said, there was this like, oh, I'm going to do it anyways. Like I'm not average, but I could tell that stuck with you. You know what I mean?
I
And
used it. I mean, I use that as fuel for sure, and I remember
100%.
that to this day. You know?
Yeah. Well, I know you do because I was giving you shit the other day about something that we'll talk about in a little bit,
Yeah,
and you were like,
yeah,
"That's
yeah,
exactly what my grandpa said when barbers only make 30K a month or 30K a year, and this is
yeah,
what I did last year." So
yeah. Yep.
there's a lot of there's a lot to be said about those things, but I think kind of tying this all together, what I'm trying to say is like, when you were 19, it was like the pain that caused you the challenge, the impression that was like, I don't want to be like this. Not that I disrespect this or this path. Like, Dad, I love you and I'm so grateful for everything you did for our family, but like that's not for me. Like the
Yeah,
seeing your dad not step into his greatness in the way that you knew he could, but him like almost settling in a way that was him being his greatest that he could for his family, right? Like it's so
yeah,
funny how from the outside in you can look, you're seeing like, man, there's so much more that you can do. And for him, he's like, this is all that I need to do. And I'm happy with that.
yeah.
And for
And
you to
that
take that,
is. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good. So I was going to say for you to take that and turn that into fuel, and now you're creating that on a daily basis. People are coming into your shop and you're providing them not only with a cut so they feel good and confident about themselves, but they're also coming to you with life, and you're giving because of those experiences that you walk through and those stepping stones through grandpa, through barber school, through dad, through watching your dad in your childhood, through all those conversations on those 1 hour drives, all that stuff. Now you have all of these tools in your kit that you get to use. And then plus, all of your entrepreneurial and leadership skills that you've developed as owning a shop and opening up a shop, all the trials and tribulations of being a husband and a father and all that stuff to give to all your clients,
Yeah,
dude. I mean, that is,
yeah,
these are the little pebbles that add up, that you just keep taking little nuggets away from every experience in your life. And like you
yeah.
now are everything but an imposter. You know what I mean? Like you are an abundant leader that can provide emotional support and like an abundance of love to people in a way that nobody else can because of your unique experiences.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. It's funny that you call it the pain of my father not going as far as he knew he could, right? And it's even painful for me to even tell that story because I know my dad's probably going to watch this. And the biggest thing for me in my story is to make sure that nobody ever felt like they weren't good enough for me, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that you emphasize the fact that my dad didn't need that. And it's so funny because I've had conversations later on in life about this with my dad. And my dad always says, you know, maybe I don't have all the money in the world. Maybe I don't have all the nice cars and all the fancy things, but I have my family and I've raised three kids and I have my wife and we're still married. And that is all I need. And that is what life is all about. And my point of view on money has changed a lot since my early years of being a barber, but like I see that value now, you know, like where my dad's like, that's not what it was ever about for me. It was about my family being together and having what they needed. And I'm so grateful for that now
Mm.
because I am part of the, the small group of people that have both parents that are still married. And I'm part of the small group of people that get to look at both sides of the spectrum of what does money give you, but also what does family really give you. And I think that there is a deeper meaning in family than there is a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that money doesn't equal freedom, right? And like that is something that I'm very passionate about. And I don't want to be rich and have all this money because I want the title, dude. I want freedom in my life. And like ultimately, you know, going back into like what this was all about at the beginning was being an entrepreneur for me was all about being able to do what I want, when I want, whenever the fuck I want, you know? And
Oh
I
yeah.
say that in a big way because it's like, you got to remember where I grew up, bro. Go to school, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, get a job for 30 years, graduate, or, you know, and then 67, you die. I'm like, dude, that does not sound fulfilling, bro. You know, like, and I'm still passionate about that, but ultimately, like the family portion of it means so much more to me now that I have my own. And I've always had a family, but I didn't build one. My dad did that, you know?
Um,
And so, Dad, if you're listening, I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you. And nothing that you've done has ever been less than perfect for us and our family.
oh yeah, dude. And I think that's the reality, dude. Is like everything's perfect. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big part of
Yeah.
turning pain into purpose is accepting that whatever it is that you experience is perfect because it's exactly what you were supposed to experience. You know, my pops used to tell me all the time, "Oh, go to college. You know, get a good job too." My dad used to say this stuff all the time to me when I was a kid because my dad's been a laborman his whole life. He's worked in the union. He's a carpenter. He put his body
Yeah.
through hell. You know what I mean? He's worked
Yeah.
physical labor his whole life. And my dad just retired. He's like in his late 50s. He retired early. Um, and I think he's like 59. Yeah, he'll be 60 next year. And I could tell how happy he is now, right? Because
Right.
now he has that freedom, you know. But he always wanted something different for me, and he told me all the time. But like I had to watch, you know, like I had to watch my dad go through the shit he went through, and I had to watch the stuff that my stepfather went through, and all these different people in my family, and then I still had to go through my own shit to be like, okay, like where do I want to go? I mean, nobody's full experience is ever going to perfectly mold you to go, you know, a direct line of least resistance from point A to point B in your life. It just doesn't happen. You have to learn some things
Right.
on your own. The point of this podcast and our chats is to take one thing away and hopefully apply it so you can fast track it or you know learn something quicker. It's never going to be completely a path of least resistance. It just doesn't happen that way, right? You're always going
Right.
to learn.
Right.
That's the beautiful thing about life is it's full of wild cards. It's unpredictable. It's what am I going to do with
Absolutely.
what's coming up, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
so I mean, I love like how you got to where you are now, and we've talked a lot about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about like I know there's probably some moms or dads listening to this, so I want to talk to you about like what have you seen that's mirrored, like what has being an entrepreneur and experiencing those hurdles and challenges. Well, how's that prepared you for being a dad and vice versa?
Absolutely nothing has prepared me for being a dad because yeah, there's nothing that can prepare you, dude. Like there's nothing that can prepare you to walk into the life of a parent. Because there's so much emotion attached to that you've never experienced in your life before.
Yeah.
Um, you can be prepared financially. You can be prepared, you know, by reading books and things of that nature. But none of those books tell you what you're going to experience inside while
Mm,
you're being a parent, right? And it has been the most beautiful thing watching my son grow up, but it's also been the most painful thing inside for me watching him grow up. And I say that in a beautiful way because I don't want him, I have to cherish every moment in these moments, right?
yeah.
That I have. And I just had one this morning. getting him ready for school. And I'm like, man, like, I'm just loving on him. I'm giving him hugs. I'm kissing his neck, and I have a beard, so it tickles, and he laughs, and it's just so cute. And like, I just freaking love that kid. And if you have a wife or a husband watching this, I promise you, you don't have kids. You don't understand unconditional love until you have a kid, because you think you love your wife or your husband unconditionally, and you may. But the level of elevation that happens when you have something that you've helped create or created yourself is, you can't describe it, right?
Mm.
So, two things. Before, I never had a vulnerability in my life of losing something. Whether it was my business, I didn't give a shit about that. Okay, cool, I'm young enough, I'll do it again. A girlfriend, I love you. There's a place in your life, in my life, for you, but the season has now changed. You know, I've
Yeah.
learned what I needed to. You're here. I love you. And it may hurt, but obviously losing a family member is hard, you know, and I'm never going to discount that. A mother, a father. Trust me, I know, because I had to watch my wife go through losing her mom, and I understand the pain that it can cause, right? But now I have a vulnerability in my life that if I lose this, I don't even want to say it out loud. Like,
Yeah.
the
We're
I
picking up
can't
what you're
imagine,
putting
like,
down.
dude, like the pain that that causes, right? Even thinking about it. So now I have a vulnerability in my life, and that's hard. Two, there is a guilt that comes with being a parent that seems to be consistent, no matter how hard you try, on whether or not you feel like you're doing enough for your kid. No matter
Mm.
what life you provide, no matter what you give that kid, the time, the energy. And it's not like my kid is feeling like I'm not doing enough, you know? It's just like I stay
That's
up
your
at
own
night sometimes being
self-inflicted
like,
thought. Yeah.
yeah, like, am I doing enough for him? You know, am I worthy of him? Like, he is the most
Mm.
precious thing in my life. Like, he is innocent and beautiful and laughs. And yeah, he could be a little asshole sometimes, but that's okay. You know, like, I would do it all over again if I had to, right? Because
Yeah.
I love him that much. Um, and so there's that. Now let's talk about the positives and something that I can give to people who maybe are parents or not yet, that plan on being it. Um, right now, my son wants nothing more than to be my best friend. And there is a time that, like, there's times that I specifically give to him because I know that. But they're not going to be that way forever, right? They're going to grow up. You did it. I did it. We all know that time where you're just like, all right, dad, chill. All right, mom, like, I just want to be with my friends. Peace, you know? But right now, he just wants to be my best friend. And the only thing that's stopping that is me. If I'm not in the mood to play right now, or if I'm too busy because I have to go to work, son, I'm sorry, I have clients. I love you. I know you want me to solve this Rubik's Cube right now, but daddy has to go to work. And like, if you can, like, give your son or daughter those moments, like, you will be thankful for it later on in life down the road. And I know that because I'm experiencing it.
Mm.
And I do my best every single day to be able to give him his best friend, you know? And so just being conscious enough to, like, be aware of, like, that is probably one piece of advice that I can give. But it is such a privilege being able to, like, watch him grow into his own individual self. And as much as I want him to be his own individual self, I still try and, give him the deep meaning of life, of spirituality, and, like, confidence, and, that self-worth thing, like, knowing that maybe he's not old enough yet, but I'm able to give him that piece of advice while he grows into who he's going to be. Just know you're worth anything you want in your life. You just have to do the work to get it. But it starts with inside. It starts with that self-worthiness first,
Mhm.
and, like, being able to be the dad that gives him that is just, like, one of my favorite things in the world.
That's awesome, man.
Um,
I
but
love
yeah, being
watching
an
you
entrepreneur
parent
and
too.
being a
It's
dad.
Yeah, I love watching you parent. Like it's super dope to like watch you like vibe with him, because it's like you could tell like he's your favorite little man in the world, and like he like looks up to you a
Yeah.
lot. And I know like I didn't have like a lot of people in my life that like I've been able to like see consistently like raise their kid. I have like quite a few friends that have kids, but like you're the closest in proximity to me. I mean, we live like really close to one another. We see each other all the time. So I've
Yeah.
got to like watch him, and his most like formative kind of years too, from like 2 to like, I mean, what is he, like 5 or 6 now? 5?
No, he's about to be 4.
No way, dude. So he was super young when I
Yeah.
met you. Man, he was only like 6 months
Yeah.
old then, huh? Sheesh.
Hmm.
I mean, he must have
Yep.
just, because I think he was walking, so maybe he was like 9 months when I met you. Because I think he was walking.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
No, I
But
don't think
anyways,
so. I think he
long
was
story.
about 6 months.
Yeah. So I mean, dude, thank you so much for sharing vulnerably about being a dad because that's such a big deal for a lot of people. And it's something that I think a lot of people desire to have, and it's something and maybe some people don't, but I think how you touched on that piece of having him in your life and what that means to you and who you get to be in your day to day, not only for him, but as a role model, but also because of this thing that you have that you're not willing to let go of or lose because you value it unlike anything else that you value, which is super cool.
Yeah.
There is one thing that I want to talk to you about, and we were talking about it last week or 2 weeks ago or something, but I want to talk to you about pickleball. And I know that's going to sound weird to everybody that's listening. You're like, how the hell does that have anything to do with anything? But so
Yeah.
Jacob's like really taking a liking to pickleball lately, but he touched on like the correlation between it and what you feel you're kind of pushed up against as you
Yeah.
continue to get better at this skill. And the reason I want to bring it up isn't because of you know pickleball in itself, but really because maybe people out here can't relate to being a dad or can't relate to being a husband or can't relate to being an entrepreneur, but maybe they can relate to having like a recreational activity or something is that they do that challenges them, that puts them
Yeah.
in a state of vulnerability to learn. So like, what are some of the things that you've been up against, as you've grown in your competitiveness in that sport that have translated into tools that you get to use not only in pickleball, but in off the court, like in your life?
Yeah. So this all started with my routine now of like being in the gym, right? And like I've always been a super scrawny kid, and I never really thought that I would be someone who had muscles. And so that's why I covered myself with tattoos, right? Just because that was like an insecurity of mine. I was like, if I'm not going to be shredded, then I might as well just be tatted, right? And as I grew in the gym, I realized that like I didn't have a lot of cardio, and my friends introduced me to pickleball. And I started playing, and I was like, man, I played ping pong a lot when I was a kid. Like, this is a lot of fun. And the only thing I've ever externally expressed my competitiveness in to another individual was ping pong. But the first time I played pickleball, that same competitiveness that I didn't share with other people very much, because I'm very competitive with myself, but I never really was competitive with like, just backtrack a little bit, like in the barbershop industry, like I don't pay attention to what anybody else around me is doing. Dude, there's a barbershop a mile away in 6 mile radius. Like it does not matter to me because I've only really been focused with what we're doing, right? I want to be the best because I want to be the best, not
Hmm.
because I want to be better than that person, right?
Yeah.
So that competitive nature came out, and it has been a long time since I've felt it in pickleball. And I was like, ooh, I want to get better at this. Like I want to grow in this, right? So I kept going, kept playing. And I realized that I don't have a lot to show my son. And being a leader, I don't want to tell my son what to do. I want to show him what to do.
Hmm.
And by leading by example, and like if I want my son to have that competitive edge, health, like a healthy form of it, right? Like I need to show him that his dad does it too. And so I started going to pickleball more and more and more and more. And there were, you know, days where I like would come home frustrated at my performance, and my wife was always like super good at like just like being my cheerleader and like telling me it's going to be all right. Um, but as I continued that journey, I didn't let myself quit, right? Like I'm getting a good workout, like why would I quit? But like I realized like I think I want to take this to that next level. And for anybody listening, I'm not somebody who tends to dip my toe in the water. Like I'm a dive all the way in, and I have to be very careful with what I decide that I like because I will go to the fullest extent. Like I'm not kidding. Like I will take what I'm liking and I will open up a card shop or like me, like
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
go
say
all
they
the
have them with
way.
trading cards, they
Yeah,
have them with crypto. I
yeah,
watched you do
yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. Like I go all the way in, and so that can be a good thing and a very healthy thing, but also I realize that there's times where I need to like, nope, this isn't going to make me money, or this is just going to take away time from my family. Maybe I shouldn't give myself that like fulfillment in that moment that I'm looking for. But pickleball was one of those things where I'm like, I'm willing to take time because my family can be there with me and watch me, and like I'm showing my kid that, something competitive that his dad does. So I'm like, I want to go do tournaments, and like what does it even look like to be a professional pickleball player? Like, is that possible? And the barrier to entry is kind of big. It's the fastest growing sport in the world, but like I deemed that moment. I told my wife, I said, I have a new goal. I want to strive to be a professional pickleball player. And I know that sounds crazy. Um, but I want to do it. And she's like, I believe that you can. I'm like, okay, like that's crazy, but I think I can too, because I've never thought of myself as a professional athlete, but
Mm.
pickleball seems tangible, right?
Yeah.
So as I grew in this, I have related a lot of things in my life through growing in this game, and that internal voice that I was talking about before has shown itself to be in my life more present than it ever has, or it has in a long time,
Mm.
especially with the growth that I want to experience, but I'm not. And then playing with people who have been playing for a lot longer than I have, and then getting my ass whooped, and that humble ass whooping that you just got to take, right?
Yeah.
And that voice in my head saying, what the fuck are you doing having a goal so far out of reach? Like, is it worth taking the time out of your day to go play this game competitively? Is it worth even thinking that you could be a professional athlete and having sponsorships with paddles and shoes? And is it worth even taking the time away from my family to like take and chase this dream? Like, I have a coach and I'm spending money on the coach, and I'm spending money on these paddles and shoes, and developing this whole world around it. I have now a membership of an indoor pickleball court, and like there's so much that I've changed about my life. I leave work, and before my wife gets home from work, I go play pickleball, and like it's like, am I taking away from my business? Am I taking away from my growth and my personal development? Am I taking away? But the answer is no, dude. The answer is no, because two things. The community aspect of this is beautiful. I'm
Mm.
hanging out with 70-year-old dudes that I would have never met before, that I'm friends with now,
Yeah.
you know? And two, whether I do or don't become a professional pickleball player, I'm still having a positive impact on my body, my mind, because I get to work on that voice telling me I can't do it.
Yeah.
I get to have a goal to strive for, and it's a big goal. I believe that everybody should always
Totally.
have a big goal. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be a barber. It doesn't mean I'm not going to continue growing my business. And that's the beautiful part about pickleball for me, is that I can do this while still doing that. I don't have to give up my life for it. It's just a
Yeah.
fun thing that I do, that I get cardio and have goals with. But man, like there's been a part of my heart that has shown itself in pickleball that I realized that needs to change. And I've been a very compassionate person, empathetic person. But at the beginning, I found myself giving the game to the other people. What does that mean? Like, I would let them win? And I'm not saying that because I was better than them. I'm saying that because why the fuck am I letting them win? Like, why don't I want to win? Why am I willing to give up my goal and my, I guess, that dub, if you will,
Mm.
for the other person's happiness? And that may sound kind of harsh, but the reality of the situation is it's not, because I wouldn't even be where I am today if I didn't think about what I wanted? And so in my life, I've realized I've done that a lot. Like, I'm willing to shut myself down and bury my emotion about how I feel for
Mm.
the other person or the other party in front of me sake, right? And that has really negatively affected me in a lot of ways. And I didn't realize how bad it was until it came to the game of pickleball. Now, there's so much I can explain. I know that like time is a thing for you. So like if we have to have a part two with this, dude, I'm so down. But let me just like finish let me
Yeah.
just finish this
No,
thought.
please, dude. I mean, I want you to finish it.
I've 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 given a lot of myself to other people. That's just who
Mm.
I am. It's second nature. I won't share how I feel about a certain situation because I don't want the other person to feel some type of way. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to take away a moment. I don't want to make it less fun for them to play pickleball. even though I love it so much. I want them to love it so much that I'm willing to just lose right now, right?
Yeah.
And then why is that dangerous? Because if I bury my emotions, or if I bury that winning
Yeah.
moment for
You
me,
turn your volume down.
I turn my volume down and I don't take what I want and grow with that, right? Now, I'm not over here being toxic, right? I'm not like, fuck you, I win. Like, but like, there's
Yeah.
still like a level of like, what do I want? Well, I want to be that player that people are actually like, oh, this is going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to get that way by letting people win all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I've grown so much in that area, and articulating this thought has been a bit tough for me this in this moment. But like, I've just gained a lot of value through going through something that I have never done before,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
playing
I
pickleball.
would like
And
to echo something that you were saying is like, if you want to stay in the realm of sports, it's like Michael Jordan would have never had a three-peat and repeated the three-peat if he didn't lose to the Pistons the way that he lost in the late 80s, right? Shit like that.
yeah,
If you want to keep it to sports, there's so many success stories like that. Like, they had to lose to hit a new level of, success in their life. And the same thing goes, like, you are robbing people of their opportunity by not playing to your fullest. And that's just not on a pickleball court. That is in your life. You're robbing people in your
right.
relationships. You know what I mean? I'm not speaking to you, Jacob, but generally speaking to the listeners, like, you are
Speak
you
to
are
me, baby.
robbing people. You are robbing people in their life if you're not playing to your fullest. If you don't love somebody enough to be honest with them about what's going on, and you just let them have their moment. You know what I mean? Like, that shit is that you are stunting the growth of people. What I learned, I had a very vulnerable conversation with a friend of mine from 7 years ago yesterday. I haven't talked to her in 7 years. And like, I just told her, I was like, I'm not going to sugarcoat shit in this conversation. Like, I'm on this conversation because I have been blessed with the opportunity to walk through a lot of shit. And in this moment, I want to provide you with some of that I walk through so you can have it. And if I care more about how you feel than what I can offer you so you can win in life, I'm doing you a disservice. And so
Yeah,
sometimes it looks like winning on a pickleball court, and sometimes it just looks like me saying something to somebody that I love and care more about them than how I look or how they feel or how I feel. It's just being real.
yeah, man. And you know what, dude? Thank you for bringing that up, because you did say that, and it did resonate with me a lot, because that is ultimately the lesson that I've learned with pickleball is the person that you show up as in somebody else's life can be positive, sure. People do remember how you made them feel, not what you said.
Mhm.
But do I want to be known as the guy who isn't willing to give his friends the hard truth? Do I want to be known as the guy who's just going to let people win? And I've never looked at that as affecting the other party negatively.
Yeah.
And I find that value that you brought into the conversation that day so close to my heart, because how much have I not said, and how much have I taken away from somebody else by not sharing my truth on how I'm feeling, or how they're not seeing their truth, and by not having the balls to say it. And it's so silly to think about something as simple as pickleball being able to portray that message by, what am I taking away from the other party by letting them win? How am
Yeah.
I gonna? Who the fuck am I to play a part in life to say that I'm gonna control their outcome? That's not cool. I'm here to be competitive and learn that competitive edge and give that competitive nature to my son. Is that what I'm getting if somebody lets me win? No. So
Yeah.
why am I doing that to other people? Right. And that is a beautiful message, dude. And so thank you for that.
Of course. Well, and it's wild too
Thank
because
you.
we feel like we're doing them a favor. But I think when you take the emotion out of, I mean, sports are very emotionally driven, but when you take that like intimacy of like a relationship or a friendship out of it, and you play a sport, you look at it like, oh well, I'm holding somebody back from being their best self or stepping up in their skills because I'm letting them win. If I put it down on them right now, they're going to want to come kick my ass next week on the courts, and it's going to push them to be better. So it's just, I think
Yeah.
that's one of the beautiful, when we can take pieces of things like sports and competitiveness out and apply it to our life of like, how do I get to push the people around me to be the best version of themselves, and not hinder who I am in the process. Like, that's a really
Yeah.
powerful thing to take away. So I'm stoked that we were able to talk about that, because I remember that conversation vividly, and I was like, oh, like, and it was one of those moments, like, for me, like, that God just like spoke through me. Like, it wasn't like when I got into the
Yeah.
competition, I was like fishing around for something. It's like, how can I
Yeah,
apply this to Jacob's life? It just like hit me. I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
holy shit. So,
Well, that's
yeah,
how God speaks to people, bros, through other people. I want to say one more thing before we close this out.
yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I've really learned in my life is that I do have a big ego. And one of the things that has been my life mission is to suppress my ego. But what I've really gathered to this extent now is that it's okay to have an ego because that is something that protects you in your life. But to control your ego, to not be so self absorbent, right? And I think I've got a really good balance on it now. So, to anybody who's listening that is an entrepreneur or that's trying to accomplish a goal or get a raise or get to the next ladder in their corporate job, or I want you to take it from me as somebody who has always humbled himself on the same playing field as everyone else, starting with my barbers and people who are close to me and who I lead, right? When you put yourself in the same playing field as everyone else, you don't grow. And
Mm.
one of the problems that I had recently was not allowing myself to grow, but that was that resistance that I was expressing before, right? And the problem with that is that how are you going to continue to be a leader if you're not providing more value for the people that you're on the same playing field with, right? And it's all the way that you portray or process the information that you're trying to gather, which is me being a leader, but also I don't want to be seen as somebody who thinks they're better than everybody else. And I still don't think I'm better than anybody else. But one thing that I have come to terms with is that I have read more books, that I have taken the risk to open up the barbershop, and that I have the knowledge that some people don't to be a business owner. And I'm not saying that makes me better than anybody else, but that does make me a leader and not on the same playing field. Now, choosing your words wisely to somebody who maybe isn't on the same level as you to help them understand what you're trying to say is okay. But don't let yourself feel less than. Don't let that internal voice say that you're not the person that you are right now. And really find it within yourself to understand in a very humble way that maybe you did read more books, maybe you took more risk, maybe you are the person for the job. Maybe you did a better job in that interview, and maybe you just want to be the best mom that you can be and that you are fit for that job. So just to reiterate and bring and encompass everything that I've said, that internal voice that you're speaking to yourself with is super important. And if I don't get another opportunity to come and speak to you guys again, I want you to take this with you. Your external confidence is not your internal self-worth. And you are the person that you want to be. And if you're in a bad position, I don't want to say this in a way that hurts you, but I want to say this in a way that makes you see the truth sometimes, that if your life isn't going the way that you want it to go, you have the control to change it. You have a pen in your hand right now, and you've written your life up to be, and sometimes you've been dealt a deck of cards that you can't control, but like the perception of that deck of cards is under your control. And that same pen you wrote your life with right now, you have 900 more pages of writing to do. And what you want your life to look like is under your control. And you have to just believe that you're worth the life that you want. And I love you, James. I
Love
love
you
you
too, brother.
listening. I love everybody here. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity and you giving me a voice on this platform.
Oh
I
yeah.
want to plug my barbershop really quick. If you
Yeah,
want to follow us on
that was
Instagram
gonna be the next thing I was gonna ask you to do. So please give us all your social media outlets, all that good stuff.
at Lifeline Barbershop is my barbershop in shop Instagram. It's not your normal barbershop Instagram. We make funny skits. We do motivational
Fantastic skits, guys. Fantastic skits.
quotes of the day. We have segments. We characterize everybody in the shop to give them the version of their personality that everybody can grasp through social media. So if you want to follow us at Lifeline Barbershop, if you want to follow me personally, I'm Positive Actions. Actions is spelled with a Z at the end of it instead of an S. Simple as that. I don't know what I'm doing with my social media right now, but the last thing I'm going to plug is that I am doing my own podcast that you will be on, called The Shape Up with Jacob. It's not out yet, so don't look it up. But if you follow me on Instagram, you will see when it's out. It's going to be super dope. I'm capturing the intimacy of what it feels like to be a barber, and I'm going to be doing people's haircuts, but I'm not emphasizing the haircut. We're not talking about the haircut. It has nothing to do with the haircut. It has everything to do with the conversation. But what I want to portray is the intimacy and the gratitude that I have for what I get to do every single day, which is have a one-on-one conversation. And a lot of people don't get that in their life anymore.
Oh yeah.
So
I got chills
I
just hearing
love
you
you
talk about
guys.
it, dude. And I knew about it already. I'm so stoked for that. It's gonna be so sick, dude.
I love everybody. I love you, James, dude, and I get to hug you soon. But for everybody that I don't know on here, dude, reach out, message me. I'll get back to you. You guys are freaking awesome. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And James, dude, you're fucking killing it, dude. I love this podcast. I love what you stand for. I love what you're doing. You are worthy of this, and I'm so excited to see it grow. So
Thank you,
thank
man.
you.
Absolutely, Jacob. Thank you so much for coming and spending the hour with us and just sharing your heart and just being who you be in the world and like again, this is the thing that I love about like brotherhood and friendship is like you've inspired me so much. I've learned so much from you and vice versa, and we live very very different lives, man. But there's so I talked about this in the first episode with Gianna. It was actually in my intro. It's so crazy how everybody's life is so different, so complex and different, yet there is so many amazing similarities in our experiences through life that we get to share and learn and grow and contribute to one another through. So thank you for being that today. And dude, I absolutely will have you on here again, and it's going to be in a really dope studio that we're sitting down in the same room together at some
Hell
point.
yeah.
But man,
Hell yeah.
thank you guys. So yeah, check out Jacob. Stay tuned. We got a ton of stuff coming up soon, guys. We're releasing every Friday. I got some amazing branding coming up. So I just thank you guys for the views, for the likes, for the shares, the comments, the feedback, everything. I appreciate you guys. It wouldn't be happening without you. So with that, we will see you guys next time.